All right, in 7.6, we're going to show adding and subtracting on a number line. This is part of the standard. Now, we've already learned how to add and subtract uh, integers and decimals without a number line. There are teachers who like to use the number line to teach how to do it. I don't think it's that helpful. I think that adding the opposite and using the inverse property of addition is easier to understand and is what I use in reality. I'm not sitting there drawing number lines when I'm in the real world adding negatives, but it is a standard that you can do this, and we're going to learn how to do it today. So let's review adding integers. So those are both negative. You add them up to negative 10. We have 3 extra negatives there. You have 6 extra positives there. Once you have subtraction, you leave the first number the same and you add the opposite. So that's negative 7. 5 minus 4 is 1. 4 minus 5 is the same as 4 plus negative 5, negative 1. You leave the first number the same. You change that to its opposite and you get, I think, negative 4. All right, so this is what we're going to be showing today. That is showing the problem 5 minus 6. Now here's a couple of things you need to know. You're going to draw the bottom arrow here first. It's always going to start at 0. That's a convention. Everyone does it that way. So you draw the first arrow to the first number. So the first arrow is always easy peasy to draw. You start at 0 and draw an arrow to the first number. Then subtracting 6. So this line is 6 units long. Notice it doesn't end at 6. It ends at the answer, negative 1. If you were adding 6, you would go that way, right? This is subtracting 6. Adding 6 would go that way. We're going to do this again much slower, but we're going to show how to put this problem on a number line. Now you should be able to know the answer without the number line. Okay. So put the integers first from least to greatest. We've talked about this before. The lowest number here is negative 10. Then comes negative 4, right? Then comes 0, then comes 3, then comes 8. Least to greatest. That's the math way of saying lowest to highest, right? Because larger is always in this direction. We never switch it. Smaller is always in this direction. But the number line starts at 0 and goes forever in both directions. So the lowest number here, negative 35. Then it goes negative 2, then negative 1. Negative 2 is smaller than negative 1, right? Because negative 2 is that way. And then we have 7 and we have positive 65. All right, so we're going to do 4 plus 6. So this is the convention. You always start at 0. The arrow goes to 4. Then from 4, we have to add 6 more spaces. Now, hopefully you know 4 plus 6 is 10. So knowing the answer makes this so much easier, right? Because we're going to go 6 spaces. Now you put it above it, and then you go another arrow that adds 6, so you end up at the answer 10. And that is the drawing of 4 plus 6. So now we're going to do negative 2 plus 5. All right, let's know what the answer is. The answer is positive 3. So you start at 0, you go to negative 2. I was a little long there. You go to negative 2, the first number. Then we're adding 5, so you go to the right. Whenever you're adding a positive, you're going to go this way. And we know the answer has to end up at positive 3. All right, and so there's the adding 5, and there's how you show negative 2 plus 5 equals 3. All right, negative 6 plus 6, we know the answer is 0. So we start at 0 to get to the first number. And then adding 6, whoops, let's be a little neater, gets us right back to where we started, 0. Negative 10 plus 3, you draw your first arrow to negative 10. And then negative 10 plus 3 is negative 7. You go 3 spaces backwards, and you're now at the answer, negative 7. All right, so now subtraction of positive, right? We're adding a positive, we made things bigger. We went to the right. Now we're subtracting positives, you're going to make things smaller. So 8 minus 6. So you go to the first number, 8, and now we subtract 6 to get to positive 2. And we're going to write subtract 6. We went 6 units back that way. 1 minus 6, right, is the same as 1 plus negative 6. We're at negative 5, right? So we go to 1 first. We always go to the first number first. And now we're subtracting 6, and we have to end up at the answer, negative 5. We're subtracting 6. You don't write the answer up there. You subtract both these. We were subtracting 6. All right, so now we go to negative 2, arrow to negative 2, and we're subtracting 7. Well, let's make sure we know what the answer is. Negative 2 plus negative 7 is negative 9, right? So we're subtracting 7, and we show that, and we end up at the answer, negative 9. 0 minus 6, right, is 0 plus negative 6, which is negative 6. So you don't have a first arrow here. I wanted to cover that. You only have the one arrow, and the one arrow, since we're starting, the first number is 0, you just draw the one arrow, you subtract 6 from 0, and you get to the answer, negative 6. So otherwise, unless the first number is 0, you're going to have 2 arrows. All right, so now we're going to start at negative 4, and we're going to add 7, and we should end up at positive 3, right? We add 7 and end up at positive 3. We go to negative 4. Now we're subtracting 7, right? Which is the same as adding negative 7. We're going to end up at negative 11. So we're going to end up at negative 11. All right, so now you have to work backwards. Now each one has 2 answers, and you're going to see that. All right, so the first number is where the first arrow ends, so it was 6. And then how did we get back to 0? There's 2 ways. You could subtract 6, or you could be adding the opposite, right? There are going to be 2 of those for each one of these. So that could be a drawing of 6 minus 6, or a drawing of 6 plus negative 6. You would get the same drawing. How about this one? This is 6, and we ended up at negative 2. So what was here? It was minus 8. So it's 6 minus 8 is negative 2, or it's 6 plus negative 8 is negative 2. What's that? Well, we went to negative. The first number is negative 3. And by the way, if you ever get confused, right, you know the answer here is 2. So how did we get to 2? One way to get to 2 would be to add 5. So what would be another way? It would be to subtract negative 5. Yeah, right? So here you're going to have 3 arrows. So you go to the first one, you go to negative 4 from 0. Then you're going to add 9 to that. So negative 4 plus 9 is positive 5. So we got to get all the way over to positive 5. We're going to show adding 9 there. I'm going to write it smaller. And then you're going to add negative 5. Where do you end up? 0. So you end up back at 0 because you added negative 5 or you subtracted 5. So let's see what possible integer problems we have here. Well, it clearly starts with 6. Then we're at negative 2. So we could have subtracted 8, right? 6 minus 8 would get us, right? And if you have to, you do bunny hops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You could do it that way. So we had 8 units that way. We subtracted 8. And that got us to negative 2. Now we're at positive 2. So how did we get from negative 2 to positive 2? We added 4. Okay, so this one, so it was 6, then we subtracted 8, we added 4. What else, right? And we ended up at the answer, which was positive 2. What else could we do? Well, we could have done 6. The first number has to be 6. But then we could have added negative 8, right? We could have added negative 8 and then added 4. And you could have even done another one. We could have done either 6 minus, there's 4 possibilities, because you could do 6 minus 8 or 6 plus negative 8. I'll write all 4, just to be clear. And then you could have subtracted negative 4, because subtracting negative 4 is the same as adding 4. So you could have done this one. You could have subtracted negative 4. All 4 of those would basically have the same picture. Negative 9 plus 13, so you go to negative 9. Negative 9 plus 13 is positive 4, so you go all the way back to positive 4. You write that you're adding 13. 8 minus 11, so you go to positive 8. 8 minus 11 is the same as 8 plus negative 11, negative 3. That should be neater. So we have to get back to negative 3, and then you write minus 11 there. All right, so what could that be? It must start with negative 6, and then we get to negative 10 as our answer. So how could we get to negative 10? Well, we could subtract 4, or we could add negative 4. All right, so this one has 3. It starts at negative 10. All right, and with 3, there's actually 4 possible answers. All right, then we ended up at 2. So how did we get to 2? Well, we added 12. All right, so you could add 12, or you could subtract negative 12. All right, from there we were at 2 and we got back to 0. So we subtracted 2. Right, the answer is 0 because the last arrow is above 0. So we should get 0 every time here. All right, so we could subtract 2 from that one and you would still get 0. 10 minus negative 12 is 2. All right, so then we could sort of do 10 plus 12. What's the adding the opposite version of that? Add negative 2. And what's the adding the opposite version of that? Add negative 2. All 4 of those problems have the same picture. Oh, I should write the subtracting 2 there or adding negative 2. And good luck on the homework.